Thank you for watching our Relationships Shorts block. I'm Rick Hamilton, Managing Director here at The Chain, and now I'd like to invite you to stay around and listen to the talkbacks with some of our filmmakers. And now we have with us the filmmakers from The Big Ask. Welcome.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Jordan Mann. I'm the writer of The Big Ask.
And the star, Jordan.
And I'm in it.
And my name's Jackie Bradley, and I directed the film.
And we'll start off with, it was, you both are credited as writing, although Jordan, it is your story. So I kind of want to delve right into the script of what was it like? There are some autobiographical elements of this, but fictionalized. So what was it like developing it? And did you feel too tied to the truth? Was it freeing that it was fiction? Were you able to kind of explore, or did you resist going, that's not how it was?
Yeah, I found it really freeing because it doesn't stick to like my sisters and my story at all, except for the fact that it's two sisters going through the egg donation process. But yeah, I think I had while I was going through the process for myself, and I was donating back in 2013 and in 2016 for the second time, there were a lot of things and complications that came up that I was like, oh, wow, I can imagine how difficult this could be if I didn't have a good relationship with my sister. And even having a good relationship with my sister, there were things that were just like sticky and weird. Like I couldn't figure out if it was my body or if it was her body, because it was being used. I'd volunteered to do this thing for her. So that's kind of why I wrote it, because I wanted to explore, what that really was and what that would be like for somebody who was in a contentious relationship with their sister.
Yeah, and I'll say for my part, it was so refreshing to, come on and co-write this and then direct this with Jordan in terms of her relationship to the material, because obviously she's quite close to it and has this huge depth and breadth of experience and little anecdotes, and we drew a lot from those things. But I was also really impressed with her ability to step away from her life experiences in moments where we thought we could push the story to a more interesting dramatic place or a more interesting sort of comedic or absurdist place. So it was a really satisfying process for us to kind of collaborate on that. And I was really, overall, we had such a good time using her real story, but not feeling bound to it.
Yeah. How close was your shooting script to like where you started? Did it develop a lot? Did it develop on set?
Yeah, it changed a lot. I, had written a script, and then when Jackie came on board, it was so amazing because she thinks so visually in a way that I don't necessarily think. I think more linear and more like story-based writing on a page. And she came in and was able to kind of see a much bigger picture of what it could be, and explore that visually in the script as well. So as soon as she came on board, we kind of had, back and forth writing sessions during the time I was doing a show and she was directing a show. So it was like this, it was all over Zoom. It was all over the internet.
You got an advance notice on everybody on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're early Zoom adopters.
So it's a perfect segue because the film is visually like amazing. It's really, there's so much. I have to say, there are very few films that I do this with. As soon as I was done, I went back and I turned the volume down and I rewatched the whole thing. And you can get so much of the story like just from how it was shot. So I have stuff I want to kind of just talk to you about. And this is going to be me just talking about all the things that I like, probably. But what I want to know is like, how much of these were like super conscious? How much did you pre-plan and they were there from the beginning? Or what did you discover on set? Or what were just accidents and you didn't even like realize it until later? So Amber and Colin are never really on screen together, except for that one, like literally halfway through the film, like to the second, like they had that moment of like injecting together. And otherwise, Callan is always like either in shadows or her head's cut off or she's literally like relegated to the background. That has to be conscious. Like you never let them be together.
I have to say, Rick, you're making me so happy to notice those kinds of details. Yeah, we built a lot of it around thinking, a lot of the visual landscape of the piece are about thinking about their different worlds and thinking about the different ways those worlds represent visually in terms of color, in terms of framing, in terms of what we were shooting, you know, on sticks versus handheld, like really thinking of the whole film and the shooting style with a kind of dichotomy between how Callan lives and moves through the world and how her sister does. And we also framed a lot around that very shot you're talking about. And it was really important to us that we have this shot that we sit in for maybe even a little too long that shows them together and shows a kind of quiet, where a lot of the rest of the film includes a certain kind of chaos because we're following Callan around. So those were definitely textures that were really important to us in the shooting style and the visual style for the film.
Yeah, it's really awesome the way it's laid out. And then the other element that's really similar to that, though, is that Callan is often in the shot by herself, whereas the people that she's talking to can come together in the shot, and that's down to even like the bartender and the patron, or the bartender and like the other student, the sister and husband. Obviously, there's one time that doesn't happen, and it's when the sister's by her, Amber's alone, and you're talking to Callan right after the injections, and the husband is in the background. Which to me, I was like, well, that doesn't really make sense, and I don't get it. And then like I was literally like about 2 hours later, I was like, oh my God, so is this about like the sister is now separated out from what's happening with the child and these two are together, or am I totally reading a lot into this film?
I love that interpretation. I don't know if we intended that interpretation, but we definitely intended the sort of focus on Callan and the way in which she is separated from other characters. That was certainly done with intentionality. You know, our DP, Alexa Wolf, is incredible, and she and I have collaborated a few times, and I really feel like I've sort of learned how to direct for film. I come from a theater background, but through my relationship and collaboration with her. So she has always been very willing to shot list incredibly exhaustively with me and let us talk about little things like that. And where is our focus and how many people are we putting in frame and who is at what size in the frame. So we were quite deliberate in how we shot it, but I think that what you're describing is a beautiful, happy accident that I'm happy you found.
That's fantastic. I know there's one where like Callan is like so small in this shot, like she's tiny and she's in the background. I'm like, this is her story, and she's not even allowed to be in frame here. I'm like, that's such a like amazing kind of shot about this. You kind of touched on this too, but the location. So how did you guys find these great, like you've got color and chaos, whether they're in the bar or under the subway, and then you've got sleek kind of hospital and an apartment. How long did it take you to get those?
Well, there's a fun story about one of the locations. We got incredibly lucky with Rohit's apartment and the bar and the subway. We were thinking of the film a lot as kind of like a Bushwick versus Williamsburg aesthetic. And so we were able to source really great locations for Callan that felt, like you said, full of color and life and texture and a kind of grittiness, and then found this beautiful apartment. Jordan found it actually that we were able to shoot for her sister's apartment that was all about, you know, sort of cool, neutral tones and clean lines and a certain kind of order. The funny location, Jordan knows, is the lobby of the fertility clinic. That scene was originally outside of a building, and the day we were shooting it, out of nowhere, a torrential downpour came, like the craziest rain I've ever seen in New York City. And we had to frantically decide if we were going to call the shoot off or relocate. And we shot it in the lobby of Jordan's actual sister's apartment building. No lights, like just our DP Alexa with like her, you know, with her camera and sticking up a sign. It was very, very guerrilla. So I'm happy that location fits into the aesthetic of the piece because we had to really rush.
Yeah, it was a flash flood. Like the water came over our feet on the sidewalk. It was the most insane.
But it wasn't like scheduled to rain that day, or?
No, we'd all been obsessively checking. Also the day before that we shot this last July, And the day before had been a heat wave where the air conditioning went out in the apartment we were shooting in the scene where Rohit and Callan are making out. It was 97 degrees inside. So we were all patting ourselves on the back after our first day of shooting. We shot only over 2 days. After the first day being like, phew, we survived the heat wave. Good for us. And then this flash flood came. It was really wild.
Last scene of the shoot had to happen. It just.
What was your choice to end where you did, either story-wise and or image-wise?
Jordan, you want to talk about that a little? We talked about it so much.
Yeah, I think we did. This was like, back and forth. This was probably our biggest question of where are we going to end their story? And I think the reason we stopped in that moment was just like it kind of at the crux of what has this become? What am I doing? Is this my body anymore? And where do I go from here? So I think having the moment end like right after Callan has made a pretty bold decision of like maybe throwing this whole thing in the can and really ruining things by getting pregnant, but not knowing whether she's going to make the decision to continue on helping her sister or even where she'll end up physically next.
Right.
Yeah,
and I feel like at least generally stylistically, I love shorts that let you show a slice of somebody's experience or someone's world or their perspective on the world without feeling like it has to give you a full kind of mini feature arc in 10 minutes. And so I think we were both really excited about what the short feels like if it ends on a bit of a question or if it ends at a crossroads, instead of it needing to make a definitive decision about where Callan's story ends and what she does next.
Yeah. And it's a literal crossroads. She's bridging. And if you haven't, go back and it's literally, I'm talking to the audience now, go back and watch this film again. You've got like access to watch this, I think, for at least 24 hours. Go back and watch it again without any sound. Not that Jordan isn't great in it and she's very funny.
I'd probably prefer to watch myself without. No.
But like the lanes are even, you've got white headlights and red taillights, and she's like standing bridging those two things. And again, it's the kind of simple and the colorful, and she's there kind of making the choice between the two of them. I was like, it's a really fantastic, the subject matter is interesting. You don't get a lot of films that tell this story. Even you might get the subject matter, but we do not see films like this. It's a very special film and very well done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you coming out and sharing the film with us and coming in for the talkback. Yeah. Where can people find out more about what you guys are doing?
All my stuff is basically on Instagram. It's at Manly Girl. My last name is Mann, so MANNLY girl.
Yeah, and I put most of my stuff on my website. It's my name, JackieBradley.com. Things I'm working on in theater, although certainly less so now, and also in film.
I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Great. So definitely go check those sources out. I have with us here the filmmakers from Perfect, Nate and Jen. Welcome.
Hello, thank you.
So one, I have to shout out for everyone watching. If you haven't noticed, this is the second film that Jen has been a part of today. You did see her twice. We're not seeing double. And if you look out for My Dinner with Schwartzy, which is playing in another vlog. She's actually in that film too, which is fantastic. So look for that. But let's talk about Perfect. That's what we're here for. So how important is it for you guys, Nate, writer and star of this, how important is it for actors to be making their own work?
This film actually came about during a time where I was auditioning, hitting the audition circuit, doing everything that an actor does, and I thought, I should do my own thing. And Jen has been doing her own thing for a while, and so we sort of teamed up in that way. And I was like, why don't I write a film for both of us to be in? And it just sort of like just started flowing out and started happening all of a sudden. And especially now with the unfortunate circumstances of this year, it is so important for people to continue to create their own work because that's all we really can do right now. And so you have like a bag of things ready to go once everything opens up again.
Have you found this time to be creative or stifling?
A little bit of both. I'm not gonna lie. But I let myself be stifled if I needed to be stifled so that I could come out of it stronger and more creative. That's how I just work personally. But I have definitely worked on other things. And there was something I did with Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS that I was a screenwriter for that premiered over Halloween. So there's been little things here and there that's kept the creative juices flowing.
Okay. Jen, how about you for this year?
Actually, I've been very busy throughout the quarantine. I have, so one of the other films that's at the festival this year, Fizzle, the director, Jeremiah Kipp, and I collaborate frequently. And so in the beginning of the pandemic, in the beginning of the lockdown, so March, we started working on these, films that we could shoot at home and, employing actors that could shoot themselves and then sort of piecing it together remotely and seeing what we would come up with. And so it just started snowballing. And then we were like making like fully realized films, in quarantine. And it was so much fun. And yeah, it was just necessary to like keep putting work out there and stay busy, honestly. And it was really wonderful to be able to have that during this time and just sort of be able to put my, bury my head and just like keep working. So it was really, really, really wonderful.
That's great. Are those available now? Are they going to be released eventually? Are you holding off on them until they can be finished?
Some of them, there are a bunch. We did maybe like 8. So some of them are going on to the festival circuit, and some of them are available online on Vimeo and YouTube.
That's fantastic. Jeremiah Kipp will be coming up in a talkback to talk about Fizzle later, but we won't keep talking about the other films. We'll go back to Perfect. So what is it? What was it about the subject matter that drew each of you to it? To me, it was not just about what is perfect and what isn't it, but don't judge or don't make opinions about other people's lives for good or for bad. Whether we're going to think that you are perfect or judge you for what you are if we don't really know your situation.
Yeah, well, the idea sort of came from, we were sitting down at coffee, thinking about how we wanted to approach our characters. I really didn't want to go the husband-wife, the exes, the lovers, like the boy meets girl, because those were so overdone. And I thought, well, what is another relationship that hasn't been talked about? And it sort of hit me when I was in high school. I had a friend who was like, all right, if we're not married by the time we're 30, we're getting married. And this was before gay marriage was a thing. And, this was a time when it just like, we need to be married for legality's sake, for the world, and I was like, oh, this is it. This is the idea. And it sort of just snowballed from there. And I mean, I personally I'm fascinated by relationships and why people choose to do what they do and choose who they love and not love. And it's just, I'm so fascinated by how people and also see each other's relationships and go, oh, they seem like the perfect relationship, but you just have no idea what's going on behind closed doors.
Right.
And I think that's what this film sort of touches on, is like things just start getting like revealed here and there throughout the night.
In this world today that we have so many different types of blended relationships, blended families, the modern family, so to speak. And I thought this was, just like Nate said, like a really interesting, different story to tell. And, not something that you always see, or maybe you do and we just don't know. But it creates a completely different dynamic. Their relationship, it's a different dynamic than other relationships. And I thought it was interesting, as actors, and also, as storytellers and filmmakers. So it was exciting and different.
Yeah. Did you guys talk together about like the kind of character, Jen, you wanted to portray? Or did you have input of that as Nate was writing?
I think that we sort of had loosely talked about, like, I mean, those are typically characters that I play, like, sort of business-minded, strong female
powerful.
characters. Yeah. And
as
so
opposed
I
to
think
all
that
the weak
Nate
women out there.
so I think Nate kind of just took that and rolled with it. We had talked loosely about it, but then he sort of, went away and said, let me go work on this. And then he came back with the script and I was like, wow. So yeah, it was kind of all Nate.
Well, yeah, I didn't want Jen's character in particular to, I wanted her to be that career businesswoman who got everything she wanted career-wise and didn't have to sacrifice anything for that. And that sort of plays into their relationship with my character as well.
Did you have issues on set of getting out of writer's head and into actor's head? Or are you able to completely kind of dissociate?
It was the first time I've done that, and it was sort of a test. And I actually, because I talked to the director and I talked to the actors, I don't know if Jim remembers, and I was like, look, I need to be an actor right now, so you're on your own. Like I need to switch hats, and it actually was pretty easy to just like go, okay, now I'm the actor. I remember I was like, oh God, I have to memorize my lines. I don't even know the lines.
I totally agree, because I was really surprised because I knew that this was Nate's first time sort of wearing two hats. And I had been producing and acting for a couple of years. And so I was used to that. And it is really hard to like let one thing go and just focus on, what's at hand. But so I was so surprised. He was so calm, and I was like sitting there on set, like, how are you doing okay? Like, are you freaking out? Like, are you stressing about, what's going on with the script? He was like, no, this is fine. I got this. I was like, wow. All right. It was a really fun, relaxed set. We had a great time.
Oh, good.
What?
The people that I talk to who are having to produce and be on film are usually the ones who are like, I can't do both. I'm thinking about catering and I'm trying to do my scene.
It's a lot.
That's awesome. What else, Jen? And you talked about some of the stuff that you have coming up. Nate, anything in the works as you've been writing, or anything that you're ready to start talking about?
The one thing that I was talking about with the Broadway Cares Equity 5 Days is called I Put a Spell on You. It was a Halloween thing with a bunch of Broadway TV film stars. It's on YouTube if you'd like to look it up. It's still there, I believe. They haven't taken it down. That was the one big thing that just happened. So I'm just sort of like dusting off the stress from that.
Well, I want to thank you both for coming out. It's a great film. I'm so glad that we were able to share it at the Chain, and we look forward to seeing everything else that's coming out.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And now we have with us from American Marriage, Giorgio Arcelli or Arcelli?
Arcelli.
Arcelli. Buonasera is pretty much all the Italian I know.
Okay, well, that's better than nothing. I mean, it gets you in a restaurant.
Yes. So, so obviously an Italian filmmaker who was working in New York. So I want to start off by where are you now?
Oh, I'm in New York. I'm still here.
How has this year been affecting you? With the lockdown and maybe lack of work, that really affects your residency.
Well, luckily I'm okay, because I got married for the green card. So I'm okay on that point of view. And lack of work, unfortunately, yes, for filmmaker is a big problem, me included. On the good end, we developed the feature film out of American Marriage, the short. So we're done with the script, and it's something actually I wanted to talk to you about, like even maybe separately, because it's a project that I want to share with friends and other filmmakers. So the good thing is that we moved a lot forward with that.
That's fantastic. So would the short be somewhere at the beginning, and then we learned what about them coming together, or somewhere at the end as we kind of figure out who he is first?
No, yeah, the short is kind of the beginning, and then in the feature they go to Italy, because he is entitled to get some money, some inheritance from his grandpa once he's married. So he says, at this point, I might as well, you know.
Win-win.
Yeah, exactly. So there is a whole section of the film that take parts in like on the Apennine Mountains in Italy, and it's obviously it's lovely, a lot of wine and cheese, and you know, and jokes, and they fall in love, obviously.
That's fantastic. I look forward to seeing how that shapes up. What other than your own sort of having to deal with the legal processes of dealing with immigrations, what made you want to tell this immigration story kind of from a different angle?
Well, apart from what you said, which is like a kind of obvious thing, and the different angle is because I think that I like to talk about multicultural thing, like international things and about immigration, but the angle, which is the point of view, is with an ironic eye, because I think that movies should make people, you know, laugh or involved emotionally and entertained, and this is what I can do. I don't want to make a sad film. That's not me. So that's the point of view, and also as I mentioned, I really like to talk about different kind of culture, of food, of like these kind of things, and they have to be in a way funny, ironic. They cannot be sad, no. The beautiful thing about mixing the culture is a lot of movement, a lot of colors, a lot of energy, and all this energy can only turn out in like a kind of like a funny film, not a sad film. A sad film is more like black and white kind of thing.
Roma.
Yes, exactly. Bravo.
Did you what was well, do you I don't want to skip ahead. Where do you feel that in that being able to like get somebody in and wrap them into laughing and just for entertainment, they actually get the message more deeply?
I think that it's more likely that people watch it, so you have like a wider audience.
Yes.
Then if they get it or not, more deeply, I mean, probably, I say not. I mean, if you make like a really serious movie about immigration, like, you know, I thought about Schindler's List for a second. Of course, that's not immigration, like, but it's kind of like moving, unfortunately, moving, you know, people, like, you know, that's like, that really gets the message, you know. When the risk of making something that talking about this kind of stuff with an ironic eye is that, well, you don't get any message. Like movies like The Proposal, for instance, same kind of story, like Sandra Bullock gets married for the green card, but watching the movie, who cares about the green card, you know, who cares about so that's the risk of not being enough serious and make a joke of real problems, and I don't want to do that, and we have to be careful not to do that. So yeah.
What was casting like? Were these people that you knew? Were you looking out for specific types?
No, we did casting for everybody. I was very lucky with the little kid, because you know, when me and my producer, we thought about, I mean, we had to cast a little kid. We put our hands in our hair, say how it's going to be possible. And then we selected a few options on this casting website, and the first kid who came was so good that we didn't have to see anybody else, and that was really lucky. So we were very lucky with the casting, I think.
Yeah, that is fantastic. He's excellent. I'm glad you spotted that, because sometimes when the first one is too good, then you're like, oh, it can't possibly be him, that we can't be that lucky, and you keep looking.
Yeah, it never. I mean, when you know, you feel it, like when the person is there, you sometimes you have this feeling with the actors, you're like, oh my god, this is like who I want. And it happened with the little kid. The other characters we had to research more and like ask people to come back, and eventually I think we made the good choices. But yeah,
they're all very strong. What was your favorite aspect about filming?
The favorite aspect of filming, let me try to say something that makes sense. I don't want to say like, yeah, be with other people, like this was fun, of course, but it was Well, I mean, let me say this. It was really nice to have James Ivory on set. He's one of the producers of the film, and he's such an important filmmaker that having him there and being able to listen to his opinion on the scene, it was like good also practice for me. And I remember, because I was acting and directing, and it's very difficult at some point, like, I couldn't play back. We didn't have time to do anything, so he was on the other side of the camera.
Oh, that's
He came
fantastic.
on every day. He came every day. Like, he was basically like, I'm not saying directing, because he was not. I was still like directing, but
He
he
could be
was
your
like,
outside eye when you were on camera.
yeah. So that was definitely like really, really good and interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the person that you want in that position.
Yeah, I mean, like, few people will be better than that.
And what else do you have in the pipeline other than working on the feature? Have you been buckled down in quarantine, or are you focused on the feature version?
Oh no, we're actually casting for the next short film. It's called Chinese Laundry, and it's set in a Chinese laundry where a girl who just came from China start working, and she doesn't speak any English, and she finds all kind of objects in the client pockets, like the seeds of an apple, like the car keys or things. And so she thinks about the people that lost the objects in their normal life. For instance, this guy has like Captain American thing, and like the little boy, and he's at home with his mother, and they're playing Captain America, but they talk in Chinese, because it's the girl's imagination. So she has like all these daydreams in Chinese, and so I'm casting like white people, or like black people, or whoever is not Chinese, then they talk Chinese. It's funny.
So you've wrapped yourself into another hard casting session.
Sorry?
So you've kind of wrapped yourself into another hard casting session.
Oh yeah. Well, not that hard, because like if I have to Google like for like Caucasian actors that speak Mandarin, I only have like 7 options. So it's kind
of... So maybe it's easier.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. Well, and so thank you so much for sharing the film with me. We love it. And I'm glad that you were able to join us in for a talkback. So thank you. And now I'd like to welcome the team from Fizzle. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. Great to be here. Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you again, Rick.
Good to see you. So we have Jeremiah, Ingrid, and Gilbert, yes?
Yes.
So from the team of Fizzle. Now, this is such a fascinating film, and I want to start with, let's go back to text. Let's go back to, this is based on a play. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so I want to know, how was the adaptation from play to film? Gilbert, what was it like restructuring your script? And then Jeremiah, how did the fact that it was a play influence any of your directing choices?
I'll start, I guess. I wrote it as a play, obviously, and I did it at a playwrights festival in California first. I directed it. Then it was done at this West Bank Cafe in New York, in this downstairs place with tables, people, where it was kind of perfect. And
so sorry, were the people like were the actors in and among the tables there, or were they on stage?
They were on stage, and it was like a place where you sit, and not dinner theater, but people were there.
Oh, I've been there many times. So
yeah, you have, sure, downstairs.
It'd be great to kind of stage it around that area.
Yeah, but it was perfect in there. Anyway, and somebody else directed it there. And both productions, it was much funnier. And what I mean by that is it was like, right there, and a bit would happen, then it would be some movement in the piano going, and then it'd stop, and then another bit would happen, and it was very light, and it was a lot of fun to do, and it was done there twice at the West Bank, and then with Jeremiah, I thought, well, I want him to do what he wants to do with it, of course, and I think we talked a bit, Jeremiah, but not a whole lot about how you would do it and or anything. And I just I trusted it. I trusted you. And once on the set, early on, I thought, my God, this is a whole other animal. And my sense is that Jeremiah was going for much deeper tones in the material, and sort of less laugh out loud funny, but much richer in that other way. So when I said it, it was funnier the first time, that's in no way a criticism, it's more a difference. And I really loved what Jeremiah brought to it and his vision of it, actually. It was terrific.
I thought the script was truly beautiful. I remember that Ingrid sent it to me, and it was pages after pages of these absurd monologues. And I did think they were very funny, but I also found them to be extremely uncomfortable. It reminded me of all those occasions that you're at a party and your inner monologue is tormenting you, and it's troubling you, and your inner monologue is louder than the voices in the room. And I thought that discomfort, that was the very reason that I wanted to make it into a film, was I enjoyed the conflict between Gilbert's incredibly precise and poetic language and the emotional violence and discomfort of the characters in the situation. And since I could see how it could be done as a play, but in a film, questions come up. It's like, where is the location and why are they there? And Ingrid and I had talked a little bit about it being in a speakeasy, So immediately you're imagining a darker room, with shadows and like mysterious people moving in and out of like different spaces. So, it's in its own way, this speakeasy became a labyrinth that the characters could navigate around. And the camera, since it's not a play, it's a movie, the camera relentlessly following the characters around and tracking them through these crowds of people, or the camera spinning around someone while their head is in a whirl, or whether or not the person they're talking to is in focus because they're not really listening to them, was one of the pleasures of taking a play and turning it into a film.
Yeah, really well. I mean, and it's no surprise that it's just stunning to look at. I mean, it's beautiful. Your language for the camera is always excellent, Jeremiah. So I particularly liked, though, some of that weaving in and out, and like someone's even talking and you're not even really being able to get the full glimpse of her, but she's wanting so much to hide that it works so well for her. Like this, just little wonderful moments like that. I want to something that you said, you talked about sort of almost the violence. One of the things I thought of, I was like, this is almost like the extroverts and the introverts at battle at this party, and sometimes that's within themselves. So it's a great image. I want to break down kind of two moments. And Ingrid not only produced one of the producers of the film, but also, if you do not recognize her, was Woman Who Yearns. So two of my favorite moments, and Ingrid's in one of them, is the woman who contemplates dropping her drink and then later does, but admits it's a complete accident. And it's a wonderful, so I don't know who wants to tackle this, but I love the breakdown of the dichotomy. It feels very 2020. It feels very much of our last 4 years of this sort of accidental, purposeful moment of, I don't know, attention or insecurity. What would you describe that?
I would describe it, I think those are two really great descriptions. I think, the insecurity to want that kind of attention and to do it in that way. So yeah, I think actually the way that you asked the question kind of answered it perfectly.
I do have a tendency sometimes to just want you to validate my opinion.
One of the pleasures of shooting that scene was that once the glass is dropped and broken, it's interesting because now you have these extras that are there that Ingrid's character is speaking to. And, it was always a question in the story of like, how much do we want to include the other people and how much do we want them to be out of focus? And in that particular scene, it was, you have two little clips of Ingrid's character earlier in the story deliberating whether to drop the glass or not, and like, should I drink it or drop it, and so on. But then once the glass is dropped, then the ability to bring in other characters, like listening to her and paying attention to her, and her like reveling in this moment of attention, became part of the storytelling. Because the characters in the story are constantly navigating whether they want to be seen or not seen, or whether they want the other person to feel seen or whether they want the other person to feel left out. So there are all these power dynamics in the story, but that one like had a nice little 3-act structure within the larger story, which was a pleasure to navigate with Ingrid.
Yeah, you're also, as an audience member, always wondering what's actually being said out loud and what's being thought and it's almost like a play of, or a script of subtext. So in those moments of finding out, especially involving some of your background players, of who is actually in the scene and who's listening, were some of those moments discovered on set? Were they all pre-planned? Did you go in knowing this is what I'm doing right now at this time?
Most of them were planned in advance. We had an extremely tight shooting schedule. We had to shoot quite a number of pages per day. So I do remember going to the location in advance and like with the director of photography saying like, well, what if we do this bit over here? And what if this bit is in the back room? But all of that started with conversations with Ingrid and then with Gilbert right before we shot. Because contrary to most people in the film business, I really admire the writer. And I think that the written word is incredibly important, and it all starts with the text. So I really did want to talk to Gilbert beforehand about like what his intentions were for certain scenes. And for some scenes, he felt extremely strongly about something. And for other scenes, he's like, oh, you can do whatever you want there. But it was really interesting. And it was also very interesting collaborating with someone who comes from the theater, because in theater, the playwright is king. The playwright can turn to the director and be like, screw you. We're doing this, and Gilbert, comes from a very rich tradition of that. And a lot of his contemporaries were people that were kings of the theater, So when Gilbert came to the set, I always was a little curious how he felt about everything, but I made a deliberate choice to make sure that Gilbert was, and I mean, Gilbert, you can't push him around either, he will be right there. But like Gilbert was always right next to me. He was always by the monitor. He was always present. And like there were moments when we would block a scene and we would even do a take. And then Gilbert would be like, that's great. Why don't we try this? How do you feel about that? So there were moments where, Gilbert would say like, what if the character is a little more, what if he's more hesitant, like, does he need to be so boldly moving into this thing? What if he's stopping and starting, and what if he can't figure it out? And it's those kind of things where like, I like doing multiple takes because I believe that I'm not always right. I always love to give the actor an opportunity to show me what they're going to do first. I always love hearing, and the writer's feedback should be listened to. Like this comes from Gilbert's mad subconscious, and it would be foolish not to listen to what he's thinking about, So I considered Gilbert an equal partner in this enterprise, and he was there every step of the way throughout the shoot. And then in post-production, I don't think we ever did a draft of the edit without Gilbert seeing it. And he was a true collaborator in that way, where he would weigh in and we would move things around and play. It was very much like playing in the sandbox with a writer. So in that sense, like when we were doing multiple takes, like, I might try something that Gilbert suggested. And every now and then I might say something like, no, Gilbert, we can't do that because of the confines of cinema. But most of the time I was very open to I loved the collaboration, and I loved the ability to try different things and explore, because that's, it's always two heads are better than one. And in this case, Gilbert's subconscious was very useful to me.
you know, I loved our process together. First of all, pre-shooting and on set, I loved it and was appreciative of that. And you're mentioning editing. There were two big sessions with you, me, and Daniel, the three of us as equal editors in that process, making decisions together, just sort of cutting right to the chase. We would make these decisions and keep them. Do you remember it the way I do?
I do. And Daniel Madoff, who also was the editor of The Avant-Gardener, which screened at Chain a couple of years ago. Yeah, Daniel and Gilbert have very strong opinions about things. You know, I mean, I found that to be a source of great pleasure because, you know, if somebody has a really strong point of view and can articulate it well, I think that is how the truth emerges of like how you're going to do something. And if I felt strongly about something, then I would push back strongly. And those were really exciting times, you know, in the editing room. You know, the good thing about editing is that you're not there, you know, with a schedule and a clock hovering over your head at all times, you know, being like, you know, like trying to get a shot is like saving China from a burning building, you know. And whereas in the editing room, you can make choices. You can even make bold choices. You can even make wrong choices. And like you can, and then you can be like, well, let's make the wrong choice. And then sometimes the wrong choice would be really attractive. You'd be like, oh, that wrong choice feels really good, you know. So that was the pleasure of working with Daniel and Gilbert, was that they were very bold. You know, they were very adventurous in the editing room. And for a piece like this that is so avant-garde and strange and Byzantine, you know, it's like, it's extremely helpful to have strong personalities in the room. I embrace it because I think that out of that occasional conflict or out of that messing around can, you know, I think that's how good art can emerge.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you all again. It's a wonderful film, and I'm so glad that you guys shared it with us.
Thank you, Rick. It's always great to have a conversation with you.